G'day there, you're watching the Aussie BIM Guru. My name is Gavin, and today we're going to look at a Revit tutorial. Whether you're a BIM manager, a technician, or a coordinator, chances are you've probably come across this scenario at least once or twice.
Here are two pictures. One is
project browser.
The other is a garbage dump in the Philippines. Can you tell which is which?
That one's the dump.
They're both.
Revit model browser.
I should have guessed that. He's good.
An unorganized project browser is no joke. You can waste so many hours of productive time by having an unorganized project where viewers just can't find elements. I'm going to show you the system that I typically use in order to manage a project browser set up from a fresh project, and hopefully this will show you a way you can use to keep your models nice and organized. I'm going to be using Revit 2020, but this system has been around for a very long time. Pretty much every version of Revit can do this. So without further ado, let's jump in. So I'm just going to make an entirely new project in Revit and show you some of the problems that occur in a standard project browser. I'm going to use an architectural template, and by default, this will have the Revit view browsing configuration. So in this case, it's just sorted by view type. Now, how is this controlled? Well, if you right click on Views All and go to Browser Organization, you'll find these browser organization schemes. So in this case, we're just seeing everything. Now, sometimes people might use not on sheets, phase, or type discipline. I'm going to show you a problem with phase first of all, and why it doesn't really work. So the great thing is if your project is heavily phase dependent, it does sort of help to have things sorted by phase. But one problem you will find is if you have a view with no phase, like a drafting view, it's going to go to question mark, which sort of means no phase. Now, usually on a project which is phase dependent, that's okay. But typically, if your projects aren't phase dependent, this can be really confusing for users that don't understand the terminology in Revit. If they see a question mark, they might be concerned. So there's some other options by default, such as type discipline. So in this case, we're sorted by view type, and then we're sorted by view discipline. Now, this is okay for a multidisciplinary firm. Keep in mind in this case that people don't always manage the discipline of their views very well, which is this field under here. So if I make my view structural, now it belongs to structure. So it can be quite hard to lock in these properties. Now, the best way that I like to organize a view browser is to add just some custom parameters that can be set up by the user as desired. I usually use two parameters. So if you go to Manage, Project Parameters, and you can either add project parameters. I'm going to add some shared parameters. You can navigate to your shared parameter file. In my case, I actually have some dedicated parameters for sorting of elements, and I'm just going to put them under general. Doesn't really matter where you put them. I'll make them vary by group instance, and I'm going to apply them just to views. Now, you could also apply them to sheets or schedules if you wish to organize them using these parameters as well. And I'm also just going to add a second browser organization level. And this will provide this field to all views, sheets, and schedules in the model on an instance basis. So it can vary from view to view or sheet to sheet. So you might think this is quite chaotic, because if we go to browser organization and we make a new one, I'll just call this sorting. If I'm going to sort and group by sort 1, sort 2, and I'm just going to maybe sort internally by the view's name, it's going to first put everything under question mark. Now, as you move things around, for example, let's say top series is going to be documentation, I can go and populate this as maybe 01 documentation. And maybe these are in a series of drawings, let's say a 30 series for elevations, because usually drawings belong to a series of drawings. Well, now we can see that we have full control over our browser. Now, you might think that's a little bit stupid because I did some manual work, but if you template properly, you can actually automate this process. Let's set up a view template for general arrangement plans. So I'm going to manage my view templates, and I'm just going to make, actually, I'll just use the architectural plan as an example. And by default, these parameters will be unpopulated when you first populate them. As soon as you give one of these fields a value, it's going to be available elsewhere. So I can now pick that documentation. Keep in mind, I can also type in a manual value. Then I'm also maybe just going to say 10 GA plans. Note that this is actually included in what the view template will lock down. Let's also just duplicate this and call this working view. And I'm going to go WK_working for the sort level 1. And for this one, I'm just going to free up the initial. This is something very common I do because usually the second level of sorting is the user. That's how I deal with my working views. So in this case, I'll just make sure this applied. Okay, it looks like I didn't apply the properties. My bad. Hopefully that's applied. Great. Working views applied. Great. Okay, so I'm just going to delete all my floor plans. And when you go to create a view, usually you go to pick a view type. So a floor plan, for example, has that edit type option. And we can see that we're applying the type of floor plan. Let's in this case make a new type and call it 10 GA plans. So it belongs to my series of drawings. You can actually apply a view template by default to new views of that type. So I'm going to pick, in this case, my architectural plan, which is automatically going to assign these parameters because the view template is going to be automatically assigned to the view. I can also just, while I'm here, make the working view as well. So I'll make a WK working. I'm going to assign the working view template. Okay. So now when I go to create new views of GA plans and I OK that, check it out. They automatically are sorted in the right place in the browser. Not only this, but these parameters are locked down by the view template. So not only is this a great way to force your browser to stay organized, but if your browser is not organized, it's also a good sign that users aren't applying the correct view templates. So it sort of kills two birds with one stone. Likewise, if I go to create my working plan, well, we can see now this belongs down in a working section, and the user still has the flexibility to go and put their name in to say which section of the view browser they own. And this can be a fantastic way to keep a browser organized. I'll show you this in a really rolled out system in my actual template. So I'll make a new project and I'll just browse to my BIM Guru template, which I actually sell on my website for 50 Australian dollars. And I'll just make my I'll make my large project template, which is the one that I sell. And by default, it actually comes with a lot of views already set up in the browser, such as working views, documentation views by series, such as GA plans, RCPs, elevations, and sections. But not only that, there's a whole bunch of view types per series available. Say a finishes plan, for example. Let's make a series of finishes plans. Well, automatically, it's assigned the view type, which is also assigning the view template, which is also assigning the parameters. So you can see here that this is a really powerful system if you wish to set it up this way. There's another additional thing some firms do that I can't say I always agree with, and this is a browser organization that shows only things not on sheets. So in this case, it just leaves behind what hasn't been placed on a sheet. Now this is good if you really want to separate your sheet space from your sheet views, if you want to make sure the user can't even delete the sheet view. But I must say that I do find that the view browser becomes a bit of a dog's breakfast in this case. One really bad thing about this is if you create a dependent view and you go to a sheet, and on that sheet you place the dependent view, unfortunately the sheet browser won't actually detect, I believe, I'll just make sure sheet name is equal to none. Typically in this case it will retain at least the dependent host view. In this case it looks like it's even retaining the dependent view itself, which is quite interesting. It looks like this doesn't actually even seem to detect its sheet number, which is quite interesting. Sometimes I've seen that it does hide this, but it doesn't hide the dependent view. But being a strong Dynamo user, one thing I really don't like about this system is usually once a view is placed on a sheet, people don't think about the name or the properties of that view anymore. It's just become a view on a sheet. No one cares about it, so it may not have a view template, it may not actually be in the right place in the view browser, and it might have a terrible name in the view browser as well, such as ground floor copy 1. So in this case, I do find that this can cause a bit of out of sight, out of mind, and I do usually recommend that firms manage this strategy carefully. But otherwise, the automatic view template, view type process, I think is really critical to have set up in a good Revit template, and I highly encourage you to make sure that you consider this in your own template. Noting you can also organize schedules in a similar way by applying a sorting system. So again, I have a sorting with just one level of sorting applied, which is really helpful because you can't really sort schedules in many other ways. And sheets, likewise, I usually organize by set and series. So in this case, I have 2 levels, and this can be really helpful if, say, you've got a design documentation set and you have a DA set and you're trying to keep them separate. Well, this can be the first level and this can be the series in the set if it's a really big set. Otherwise, maybe you only need to see, say, 1 level. Let's say you're doing a little house. Well, in that case, maybe you just need 1 level of sorting. The great thing is that even if you disable 1 level of sorting, the parameter still exists. So if you ever want to go and change it, you can either have separate browser organizations, or you can just go and reapply parameters. And I can see that my browser organization has returned. So there you go. It makes sorting a model so simple and so easy, and it's almost automatic, but you still have a good level of control over the system if you set it up properly. Hopefully that helps you with a new technique, especially if you're a BIM manager or BIM model manager and you might just be learning some best practices. That is definitely one of them. Anyway, I'll be back with more videos in future, some with best practices, some for Dynamo, but if you're not already following and subscribing, feel free to do so, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Thanks, take care, bye.